Good morning, grizzly bears. Or good afternoon, good evening, good night. Whatever it is for you. I am back for another stream in the Longfellow series. And I want to start by apologizing to Longfellow because I was a little mean to him in the last stream. I was very critical of the poems that I was reading in the last stream. I called them things like overly long and boring. And I listened to the VOD again myself, and I actually kind of liked the poems on re-listening to them. And I actually kind of didn't like myself. So I think the problem there was my mood, not Longfellow. That stream was on my first day back from vacation, a vacation involving a lot of travel by both plane and car. And I had also had a long day of work. So, and I also had a little bit of a cold. So my voice wasn't cooperating with me. And there were just all sorts of things that were mildly annoying to me, and my mood was not great. And often, streaming these poetry ASMR sessions improves my mood, but I wasn't quite feeling it in that stream. At least not until the end. My mood did, in fact, improve toward the end. I sort of managed to center myself. But by that time, my voice was pretty much shot, so anyway, apologies to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow for calling his poems boring. Okay, so the best apology, or the best way I can make it up to him, is to continue reading his poems, and perhaps to avoid calling them boring. So, the next poem in this very long series of the complete works of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The next poem is called Walter van der Vogelweide. I don't actually know who Vogelweide is. Longfellow did like to write poems to historical figures, some of whom are obscure, or at least obscure to me. So here we go. Vogelweide, the minnesinger, when he left this world of ours, laid his body in the cloister under Würzburg's minster towers, and he gave the monks his treasures, gave them all with his behest. They should feed the birds at noontide daily on his place of rest, saying, from these wandering minstrels I have learned the art of song. Let me now repay the lessons they have taught so well and long. Thus the bard of love departed, and fulfilling his desire on his tomb, the birds were feasted by the children of the choir. Day by day, o'er tower and turret, in foul weather and in fair, day by day, in vaster numbers flocked the poets of the air. On the tree whose heavy branches overshadowed all the place, on the pavement, on the tombstone, on the poet's sculptured face, on the crossbars of each window, on the lintel of each door, they renewed the war of Wartburg, which the bard had fought before. There they sang their merry carols, sang their lauds on every side, and the name their voices uttered was the name of Vogelweide. Till at length the portly abbot murmured, "Why this waste of food? Be it changed to loaves henceforward for our tasting brotherhood." Then in vain o'er tower and turret, from the walls and woodland nests, when the minster bells rang noontide, gathered the unwelcome guests. Then in vain, with cries discordant, clamorous round the Gothic spire, screamed the feathered minnesingers for the children of the choir. Time has long effaced these inscriptions on the cloister's funeral stones, and tradition only tells us where repose the poet's bones. But around the vast cathedral, by sweet echoes multiplied, still the birds repeat the legend and the name of Vogelweide. Next we have a poem called Drinking Song, subtitled Inscription for an Antique Pitcher. Come, old friend, sit down and listen. From the pitcher placed between us, how the waters laugh and glisten in the head of old Silenus. Old Silenus, bloated, drunken, led by his inebriate satyrs. On his breast his head is sunken. Vacantly he leers and chatters. Fawns with youthful Bacchus follow. Ivy crowns the brow supernal at the forehead of Apollo, and possessing youth eternal. Round about him fair bacchantes, bearing cymbals, flutes, and thyrses, wild from Naxian groves, Orizontes, vineyards, sing delirious verses. Thus he won through all the nations bloodless victories, and the farmer bore as trophies and oblations vines for banners, plows for armor. Judged by no o'erzealous rigor, much this mystic throng expresses. Bacchus was the type of vigor, and Silenus of excesses. These are ancient ethnic revels of a faith long since forsaken. Now the satyrs, changed devils, frighten mortals, wine o'ertaken. Now to rivulets from the mountains point the rods of fortune tellers. Youth perpetual dwells in fountains, not in flasks, casks, and cellars. Claudius, though he sang of flagons and huge tankards filled with Rhenish, from that fiery blood of dragons never would his own replenish. Even ready though he chaunted Bacchus in the Tuscan valleys, never drank the wine he vaunted in his dithyrambic sallies. Then with water fill the pitcher wreathed about with classic fables, ne'er Faulnerian threw a richer light upon Lucullus' tables. Come, old friend, sit down and listen, as it passes thus between us, how its wavelets laugh and glisten in the head of old Silenus. That was Drinking Song, Inscription for an Antique Pitcher by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The next poem in the series here is called The Arrow and the Song. I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I know not where. For so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I know not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterward, in an oak I found the arrow still unbroke, and the song from beginning to end I found again in the heart of a friend. That was The Arrow and the Song by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And that was the end of a section of poems by Longfellow called Songs. And now we begin a new section called Sonnets. Sonnets can be fun. The first sonnet is called Mezzo Cammin. Half of my life is gone, and I have let the years slip from me, and have not fulfilled the aspiration of my youth to build some tower of song with lofty parapet. Not indolence nor pleasure nor the fret of restless passion's chat would not be stilled, but sorrow and a care that almost killed kept me from what I may accomplish yet. Though halfway up the hill I see past, lying beneath me with its sounds and sights, a city in the twilight dim and vast, with smoking roofs, soft bells, and gleaming lights, and here above me, on the autumnal blast, the cataract of death, far thundering from the heights. Next up, we have the evening star. Low in the painted oriel of the west, whose panes the sunken sun incarnadines, like a fair lady at her casement shines, the evening star, the star of love and rest. And then anon she doth herself divest of all her radiant garments, and reclines behind the sombre screen of yonder pines, with slumber and soft dreams of love oppressed. O my beloved, my sweet Hesperus, my morning and my evening star of love, my best and gentlest lady, even thus, as that fair planet in the sky above, dost thou retire unto thy rest at night, and from thy darkened window fades the light. Next is Autumn. This is nice, this little series of sonnets. Sonnets are a good length, and they're usually quite pretty. Give me a moment to clear my throat. Thou comest, autumn, heralded by the rain, with banners by great gales of incessant fanned, brighter than brightest silks of Samarcand, and stately oxen harnessed to thy wain. Thou standest like imperial Charlemagne upon thy bridge of gold, thy royal hand outstretched with benedictions o'er the land, blessing the farms through all thy vast domain. Thy shield is the red harvest moon suspended so long beneath the heaven's o'erhanging eaves. Thy steps are by the farmer's prayers attended, like flames upon an altar shine the sheaves, and following thee in thy ovation splendid, thine almoner the wind scatters the golden leaves. Next up is Dante. Tuscan that wanderest through the realms of gloom, with thoughtful pace and sad, majestic eyes, stern thoughts and awful from thy soul arise, like Farinata from his fiery tomb. Thy sacred song is like the trump of doom, yet in thy heart what human sympathies, what soft compassion glows as in the skies. The tender stars their clouded lamps relume. Methinks I see thee stand, with pallid cheeks, by Fra Hilario in his diocese, as up the convent walls in golden streaks the ascending sunbeams mark the day's decrease. And as he asks where there the stranger seeks, thy voice along the cloister whispers, peace. Next up is a poem called Curfew, which is in 2 parts, but each part is quite short. Solemnly, mournfully, dealing its dole, the curfew bell is beginning to toll. Cover the embers and put out the light. Toil comes with the morning, and rest with the night. Dark grow the windows, and quenched is the fire. Sound fades into silence, all footsteps retire. No voice in the chambers, no sound in the hall. Sleep and oblivion reign over all. The book is completed and closed like the day, and the hand that has written it lays it away. Dim grow its fancies, forgotten they lie. Like coals in the ashes they darken and die. Song sinks into silence. The story is told, the windows are darkened, the hearthstone is cold. Darker and darker the black shadows fall. Sleep and oblivion reign over all. That was Curfew by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next we have something quite different. Goodness gracious. We have a work that looks a bit like a novel. This looks like enough material for an entire stream all on its own. This is something, a poem, an epic poem perhaps, called Evangeline, A Tale of a Cady. I think I am not going to read that right now. I will have a look at it after stream. Yeah, it really looks, it's just a story. It's not a poem at all. And it comes in several parts. And yeah, I think I'll skip it for now. And it looks like another long one after that, which I will also skip. But it does have a dedication. So the story is called The Seaside and the Fireside. And it's a long story, so I won't read it, but it starts with a dedication. And the dedication is a shorter poem, so I'll go ahead and read that. As one who, walking in the twilight gloom, hears round about him voices as it darkens, and seeing not the forms from which they come, pauses from time to time and turns and hearkens. So, walking here in twilight, O my friends, I hear your voices softened by the distance, and pause and turn to listen as each sends his words of friendship, comfort, and assistance. If any thought of mine, or sung or told, has ever given delight or consolation, ye have repaid me back 1,000-fold by every friendly sign and salutation. Thanks for the sympathies that ye have shown. Thanks for each kindly word, each silent token that reaches me when seeming most alone. Friends are around us, though no word be spoken. Kind messages that pass from land to land. Kind letters that betray the heart's deep history, in which we feel the pressure of a hand. One touch of fire, and all the rest is mystery. The pleasant books that silently among our household treasures take familiar places, and are to us as if a living tongue, spice from the printed leaves or pictured faces. Perhaps on earth I never shall behold with eye of sense your outward form and semblance. Therefore to me ye never will grow old, but live forever young in my remembrance. Never grow old, nor change, nor pass away. Your gentle voices will flow on forever. When life grows bare and tarnished with decay, as through a leafless landscape flows a river. Not chance of birth or place has made us friends, being oftentimes of different tongues and nations, but the endeavor for the self-same ends, with the same hopes and fears and aspirations. Therefore I hope to join your seaside walk, saddened and mostly silent with emotion, not interrupting with intrusive talk the grand, majestic symphonies of ocean. Therefore I hope, as no unwelcome guest, at your warm fireside when the lamps are lighted, to have my place reserved among the rest, nor stand as one unsought and uninvited. The next poem is called Seaweed. When descends on the Atlantic the gigantic storm wind of the equinox, landward in his wrath he scourges the toiling surges, laden with seaweed from the rocks. From Bermuda's reefs, from edges of sunken ledges, in some far-off bright azure, from Bahama and the dashing, silver-flashing surges of San Salvador, from the tumbling surf that buries the Orkneyan skerries, answering the hoarse Hebrides, and from wrecks of ships and drifting spars uplifting on the desolate, rainy seas. Ever drifting, drifting, drifting on the shifting currents of the restless main, till in sheltered coves and reaches of sandy beaches all have found repose again. So when storms of wild emotion strike the ocean of the poet's soul, ere long, from each cave and rocky fastness, in its vastness, floats some fragment of a song. Front the far-off isles enchanted, heaven has planted with the golden fruit of truth. From the flashing surf whose vision gleams Elysian, in the tropic clime of youth. From the strong will and the endeavor that forever wrestle with the tides of fate. From the wreck of hopes far scattered, tempest shattered, floating waste and desolate. Ever drifting, drifting, drifting on the shifting currents of the restless heart, till at length in books recorded they, like hoarded household words, no more depart. That was Seaweed by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And I did a great job of butchering it, didn't I? That was not my best reading. My apologies to Longfellow and to anyone who might be listening. I shall endeavor to do better. The next poem is called Chrysaor. Just above yon sandy bar, as the day grows fainter and dimmer, lonely and lovely a single star lights the air with a dusky glimmer. Into the ocean faint and far falls the trail of its golden splendor, and the gleam of that single star is ever refulgent, soft, and tender. Chrysaor, rising out of the sea, showed thus glorious and thus emulous, leaving the arms of Calero forever tender, soft, and tremulous. Thus o'er the ocean, faint and far, trailed the gleam of his falchion brightly. Is it a god, or is it a star, that entranced I gaze on nightly? That was Chrysaor. I will take a quick hydrate now before I start this next poem, which is a little long, but not overly long. Okay, this next poem is called The Secret of the Sea. We seem to be in a section of poems that often deal with the sea thematically. Ah, what pleasant visions haunt me as I gaze upon the sea. All the old romantic legends, all my dreams come back to me. Sails of silk and ropes of sandal, such as gleam in ancient lore, and the singing of the sailors and the answer from the shore. Most of all, the Spanish ballad haunts me oft and tarries long, of the noble Count Arnaldos and the sailor's mystic song. Like the long waves on a sea beach, where the sand as silver shines, with a soft, monotonous cadence, flow its unrhymed lyric lines, telling how Count Arnaldos, with his hawk upon his hand, saw a fair and stately galley steering onward to the land. How he heard the ancient helmsman chant a song so wild and clear that the sailing seabird slowly poised upon the mast to hear. Till his soul was full of longing, and he cried with impulse strong, "Helmsman, for the love of heaven, teach me too that wondrous song." "Wouldst thou," so the helmsman answered, "learn the secret of the sea? Only those who brave its dangers comprehend its mystery. In each sail that skims the horizon, in each landward blowing breeze, I behold that stately galley, hear those mournful melodies, till my soul is full of longing for the secret of this sea, and the heart of the great ocean sends a thrilling pulse through me." Hello, Fanto, and hello, Baby Bunny Prince. Welcome to the stream. Welcome back to the stream. I hope you enjoy your time here. That poem was called The Secret of the Sea by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The next poem is called Twilight. The twilight is sad and cloudy. The wind blows wild and free. And like the wings of seabirds flash the white caps of the sea. But in the fisherman's cottage there shines a ruddier light. And a little face at the window peers out into the night. Close, close is pressed to the window, as if those childish eyes were looking into the darkness to see some form arise. And a woman's waving shadow is passing to and fro, now rising to the ceiling, now bending and bowing low. What tale do the roaring ocean and the night wind bleak and wild, as they beat at the crazy casement, tell to that little child? And why do the roaring ocean and the night wind wild and bleak, as they beat at the heart of the mother, drive the color from her cheek? That poem turned quite interesting in that last stanza. I like that a lot. It surprised me a bit. It seemed just like a nice poem at first, but then it turned a bit dark. Next up, we have a poem called Sir Humphrey Gilbert. Southward, with fleet of ice, sailed the corsair Death. Wild and fast blew the blast, and the east wind was his breath. His lordly ships of ice glisten in the sun, on each side like pennons wide, flashing crystal streamlets run. His sails of white sea mist dripped with silver rain, but where he passed, there were cast leaden shadows o'er the main. Eastward from Campobello, Sir Humphrey Gilbert sailed. 3 days or more seaward he bore, then, alas, the land wind failed. Alas, the land wind failed, and ice cold grew the night, and nevermore on sea or shore should Sir Humphrey see the light. He sat upon the deck, the book was in his hand. Do not fear, heaven is as near, he said, by water as by land. In the first watch of the night, without a signal sound, out of the sea, mysteriously, the fleet of death rose all around. The moon and the evening star were hanging in the shrouds. Every mast as it passed seemed to rake the passing clouds. They grappled with their prize at midnight, black and cold, as of a rock was the shock. Heavily the groundswell rolled. Southward through day and dark, they drift in close embrace, with mist and rain o'er the open main. Yet there seems no change of place. Southward, forever southward, they drift through dark and day, and like a dream in the Gulf Stream, sinking, vanish all away. It was a poem called Sir Humphrey Gilbert. And next up we have The Lighthouse. Continuing our nautical theme, it seems. The rocky ledge runs far into the sea, and on its outer point, some miles away, the lighthouse lifts its massive masonry, a pillar of fire by night, of cloud by day. Even at this distance, I can see the tides, upheaving, break unheard along its base, a speechless wrath that rises and subsides in the white lip and tremor of the face. And as the evening darkens, lo, how bright, through the deep purple of the twilight air, beams forth the sudden radiance of its light, with strange, unearthly splendor in the glare. Not one alone from each projecting cape and perilous reef along the ocean's verge starts into life a dim, gigantic shape, holding its lantern o'er the restless surge. Like the great giant Christopher, it stands upon the brink of the tempestuous wave, wading far out among the rocks and sands, the night o'ertaken mariner to save. And the great ships sail outward and return, bending and bowing o'er the billowy swells, and ever joyful as they see it burn, they wave their silent welcomes and farewells. They come forth from the darkness, and their sails gleam for a moment only in the blaze, and eager faces, as the light unveils, gaze at the tower and vanish while they gaze. The mariner remembers when a child, on his first voyage, he saw it fade and sink, and when, returning from adventures wild, he saw it rise again o'er the ocean's brink. Steadfast, serene, immovable, the same, year after year, through all the silent night, burns on forevermore that quenchless flame, shines on the inextinguishable light. It sees the ocean to its bosom clasp the rocks and sea sand with the kiss of peace. It sees the wild winds lift it in their grasp and hold it up and shake it like a fleece. The startled waves leap over it, the storm smites it with all the scourges of the rain, and steadily against its solid form press the great shoulders of the hurricane. The sea-bird wheeling round it with the din of wings and winds and solitary cries, blinded and maddened by the light within, dashes himself against the glare, and dies. A new Prometheus, chained upon the rock, still grasping in his hand the fire of Jove. It does not hear the cry nor heed the shock, but hails the mariner with words of love. Sail on, it says. Sail on, ye stately ships, and with your floating bridge the ocean span. Be mine to guard this light from all eclipse. Be yours to bring man nearer unto man. That poem was called The Lighthouse. It was quite long, but I think it was pretty good. I think I could have done a better job with it. And maybe the next time I read it, I will. The next poem is also pretty long. It's called The Fire of Driftwood, Devereux Farm near Marblehead. He writes a lot of poems about places. He did a lot of traveling. Good for him. Just a moment, I'm going to hydrate before I start this one. All right. The Fire of Driftwood. We sat within the farmhouse old, whose windows looking o'er the bay gave to the sea breeze damp and cold an easy entrance night and day. Not far away we saw the port, the strange, old-fashioned, silent town, the lighthouse, the dismantled fort, the wooden houses quaint and brown. We sat and talked until the night, descending, filled the little room. Our faces faded from the sight, our voices only broke the gloom. We spake of many a vanished scene, of what we once had thought and said, of what had been and might have been, and who was changed and who was dead, and all that fills the heart of friends when first they feel with secret pain their lives henceforth have separate ends and never can be one again. The first slight swerving of the heart, the words are powerless to express, and leave it still unsaid in part, or say it in too great excess. The very tones in which we spake had something strange I could but mark. The leaves of memory seemed to make a mournful rustling in the dark. Oft died the words upon our lips, as suddenly from out the fire, built of the wreck of stranded ships, the flames would leap and then expire. And as their splendor flashed and failed, we thought of wrecks upon the main, of ships demasted that were hailed and sent no answer back again. The windows rattling in their frames, the ocean roaring up the beach, the gusty blast, the bickering flames, all mingled vaguely in our speech, until they made themselves a part of fancies floating through the brain, the long-lost ventures of the heart that send no answers back again. O flames that glowed, O hearts that yearned, they were indeed too much akin, the driftwood fire without that burned, the thoughts that burned and glowed within. I thought that was kind of a nice poem. A bit sad, but nice. That was The Fire of Driftwood by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And now we are starting a new section of poems. This section is titled By the Fireside. And it starts with a poem called Resignation. There is no flock, however watched and tended, but one dead lamb is there. There is no fireside, howsoe'er defended, but has one vacant chair. The air is full of farewells to the dying and mournings for the dead. The heart of Rachel for her children crying will not be comforted. Let us be patient. These severe afflictions not from the ground arise, but oftentimes celestial benedictions assume this dark disguise. We see but dimly through the mists and vapors amid these earthly damps. What seem to us but sad, funereal tapers may be heaven's distant lamps. There is no death. What seems so is transition. This life of mortal breath is but a suburb of the life Elysian, whose portal we call death. She is not dead, the child of our affection, but gone unto that school, where she no longer needs our poor protection, and Christ himself doth rule. In that great cloister's stillness and seclusion, by guardian angels led, safe from temptation, safe from sin's pollution, she lives whom we call dead. Day after day we think what she is doing, in those bright realms of air, year after year, her tender steps pursuing, behold her grown more fair. Thus do we walk with her and keep unbroken the bond which nature gives, thinking that our remembrance, though unspoken, may reach her where she lives. Not as a child shall we again behold her, for when the raptures wild in our embraces we again enfold her, she will not be a child, but a fair maiden in her father's mansion, clothed with celestial grace, and beautiful with all the soul's expansion shall we behold her face. And though at times impetuous with emotion and anguish long suppressed, the swelling heart heaves moaning like the ocean that cannot be at rest, we will be patient and assuage the feeling we may not wholly stay, by silence sanctifying, not concealing, the grief that must have a way. The next poem is called The Builders. All are architects of fate, working in these walls of time, some with massive deeds and great, some with ornaments of rhyme. Nothing useless is or low, each thing in its place is best, and what seems but idle show strengthens and supports the rest. For the structure that we raise, time is with materials filled. Our todays and yesterdays are the blocks with which we build. Truly shape and fashion these, leave no yawning gaps between. Think not, because no man sees, such things will remain unseen. In the elder days of art, builders wrought with greatest care each minute and unseen part, for the gods see everywhere. Let us do our work as well, both the seen and the unseen. Make the house where gods may dwell, beautiful, entire, and clean. Else our lives are incomplete standing in these walls of time, broken stairways where the feet stumble as they seek to climb. Build today then, strong and sure, with a firm and ample base, and ascending and secure, shall tomorrow find its place. Thus alone can we attain to those turrets where the eye sees the world as one vast plain, and one boundless reach of sky. I think that one was pretty nice. That was The Builders, a poem about all of us, by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I feel like that's the kind of poem that could be printed on a poster and framed and hung on the wall as a sort of inspirational poem, maybe in an office. It's also very nice. The next poem is called Sand of the Desert in an Hourglass. A handful of red sand from the hot clime of Arab deserts brought. Within this glass becomes the spy of time, the minister of thought. How many weary centuries has it been about those deserts blown? How many strange vicissitudes has seen, how many histories known? Perhaps the camels of the Ishmaelite trampled and passed it o'er, when into Egypt from the patriarch's sight his favorite son they bore. Perhaps the feet of Moses, burnt and bare, crushed it beneath their tread, or Pharaoh's flashing wheels into the air scattered it as they sped. Or Mary, with the Christ of Nazareth held close in her caress, whose pilgrimage of hope and love and faith illumined the wilderness. Or anchorites beneath Engadi's palms, pacing the Dead Sea beach, and singing slow their old Armenian psalms in half-articulate speech. Or caravans that from Bassora's gate with westward steps depart. Or Mecca's pilgrims, confident of fate and resolute in heart. These have passed over it, or may have passed. Now, in this crystal tower, imprisoned by some curious hand at last, it counts the passing hour. And as I gaze, these narrow walls expand before my dreamy eye, stretches the desert with its shifting sand, its unimpeded sky. And borne aloft by the sustaining blast, this little golden thread dilates into a column high and vast, a form of fear and dread. And onward, across the setting sun, across the boundless plain, the column and its broader shadow run, till thought pursues in vain. The vision vanishes, these walls again shut out the lurid sun, shut out the hot, immeasurable plain. The half-hour's sand is run. That one was cute. I liked it. It's called Sand of the Desert in an Hourglass. Okay, the next poem is called The Open Window. The old house by the lindens stood silent in the shade, and on the graveled pathway the light and shadow played. I saw the nursery windows wide open to the air, but the faces of the children, they were no longer there. The large Newfoundland house dog was standing by the door. He looked for his little playmates who would return no more. They walked not under the lindens, they played not in the hall. But shadow and silence and sadness were hanging over all. The birds sang in the branches with sweet, familiar tone, but the voices of the children will be heard in dreams alone. And the boy that walked beside me, he could not understand why closer in mine, ah, closer, I pressed his warm, soft hand. That was a sad poem called The Open Window by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. A somewhat terrifying poem for those of us with children. The next poem is called King Witlof's Drinking Horn. This one looks like fun. Oh, maybe not so fun. Witlaf, a king of the Saxons, ere yet his last he breathed to the merry monks of Courland, his drinking horn bequeathed, that whenever they sat at their revels and drank from the golden bowl, they might remember the donor and breathe a prayer for his soul. So sat they once at Christmas and bade the goblet pass. In their beards the red wine glistened like dewdrops in the grass. They drank to the soul of Witlaf. They drank to Christ the Lord, and to each of the 12 apostles who had preached his holy word. They drank to the saints and martyrs of the dismal days of yore. And as soon as the horn was empty, they remembered one saint more. And the reader droned from the pulpit like the murmur of many bees, the legend of good Saint Guthlac and Saint Basil's homilies, till the great bells of the convent from their prison in the tower, Guthlac and Bartholomew proclaimed the midnight hour. And the Yule log cracked in the chimney, and the abbot bowed his head, and the flamelets flapped and flickered, but the abbot was stark and dead. Yet still in his pallid fingers he clutched the golden bowl, in which, like a pearl dissolving, had sunk and dissolved his soul. But not for this their revels the jovial monks forbore, for they cried, "Fill high the goblet, we must drink to one saint more." What an interesting one. I think in the end that was quite fun, if a little bit morbid. That poem was called King Witlof's Drinking Horn by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up, we have a poem called Gaspar Becerra I don't know who that is, but I'll read the poem anyway. By his evening fire the artist pondered o'er his secret shame. Baffled, weary, and disheartened, still he mused and dreamed of fame. 'Twas an image of the Virgin that had tasked his utmost skill. But alas, his fair ideal vanished and escaped him still. From a distant eastern island had the precious wood been brought. Day and night the anxious master at his toil untiring wrought, till, discouraged and desponding, sat he now in shadows deep, and the day's humiliation found oblivion in sleep. Then a voice cried, "Rise, O Master, from the burning brand of oak. Shape the thought that stirs within thee." And the startled artist woke, and from the smoking embers seized and quenched the glowing wood, and therefrom he carved an image, and he saw that it was good. O thou sculptor, painter, poet, take this lesson to thy heart. That is best which lieth nearest. Shape from that thy work of art. Was a nice, inspirational poem. Relatable, I think. The next poem is called Pegasus in Pound. Hello, Rob 1037. How are you? Welcome to my stream. I hope you enjoy your time here. I am reading the complete works of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Once into a quiet village, without haste and without heed, in the golden prime of morning strayed the poet's winged steed. It was autumn, and incessant piped the quails from shocks and sheaves, and like living coals the apples burned among the withering leaves. Loud the clamorous bell was ringing. From its belfry, gaunt and grim, 'twas the daily call to labor, not a triumph meant for him. Not the less he saw the landscape in its gleaming vapor veiled, not the less he breathed the odors that the dying leaves exhaled. Thus, upon the village common, by the schoolboys he was found, and the wise men in their wisdom put him straightway into pound. Then the somber village crier, ringing loud his brazen bell, wandered down the street proclaiming there was an estray to sell. And the curious country people, rich and poor and young and old, came in haste to see this wondrous winged steed with mane of gold. Thus the day passed and the evening fell with vapors cold and dim, but it brought no food nor shelter, brought no stall nor straw for him. Patiently and still expectant looked he through the wooden bars, saw the moon rise o'er the landscape, saw the tranquil, patient stars, till at length the bell at midnight sounded from its dark abode, and from out a neighboring farmyard loud the cock Alectryon crowed. Then, with nostrils wide distended, breaking from his iron chain, and unfolding far his pinions, to those stars he soared again. On the morrow, when the village woke to all its toil and care, lo, the strange steed had departed, and they knew not when nor where. But they found upon the greensward, where his straggling hoofs had trod, pure and bright, a fountain flowing from the hoof marks in the sod. From that hour, the fount unfailing gladdens the whole region round, strengthening all who drink its waters, while it soothes them with its sound. That was a neat one. I liked it. A little self-serving for a poet to write a poem about the value of poetry, which I think is what this one was about. It was called Pegasus in Pound. Thank you, Rob, for your generous comment. I hope you find relaxation here. The next poem is called Tegner's Drapa. It looks more like a short story than a poem, but it's relatively short, so I'll just hydrate a bit here, and then we will tackle that. All right, Tegner's Drapa by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I heard a voice that cried, Balder the beautiful is dead, is dead. And through the misty air passed like the mournful cry of sunward sailing cranes. I saw the pallid corpse of the dead sun borne through the northern sky. Blasts from Niflheim lifted the sheeted mists around him as he passed. And the voice forever cried, Balder the beautiful is dead, and died away through the dreary night in accents of despair. Balder the beautiful, god of the summer sun, fairest of all the gods. Light from his forehead beamed, runes were upon his tongue as on the warrior's sword. All things in earth and air bound were by magic spell, never to do him harm, even the plants and stone, all save the mistletoe, the sacred mistletoe. Hodor, the blind old god, whose feet are shod with silence, pierced through that gentle breast with his sharp spear, by fraud made of the mistletoe, the accursed mistletoe. They laid him in his ship with horse and harness, as on a funeral pyre. Odin placed a ring upon his finger and whispered in his ear. They launched the burning ship. It floated far away over the misty sea, till like the sun it seemed sinking beneath the waves. Balder returned no more. So perish the old gods, but out of the sea of time rises a new land of song, fairer than the old. Over its meadows green walk the young bards and sing. Build it again, O ye bards, fairer than before. Ye fathers of the new race, feed upon morning dew, sing the new song of love. The law of force is dead, the law of love prevails. Thor the Thunderer shall rule the earth no more. No more with threats challenge the meek Christ. Sing no more, O ye bards of the north, of Vikings and of Jarls, and of the days of Eld. Preserve the freedom only, not the deeds of blood. That was a nice little story poem. I wish it were true what he wrote there about the law of force being dead. It clearly is not. The next little poem is called Sonnet on Mrs. Kemble's Readings from Shakespeare. I wonder who Mrs. Kemble was. Maybe one of his teachers who read Shakespeare to him. Isn't that neat to think of? Oh, precious evenings, all too swiftly sped, leaving us heirs to amplest heritages of all the best thoughts of the greatest sages, and giving tongues unto the silent dead. How our hearts glowed and trembled as she read, interpreting by tones the wondrous pages of the great poet who foreruns the ages, anticipating all that shall be said. O happy reader, having for thy text the magic book, whose sibylline leaves have caught the rarest essence of all human thought. O happy poet, by no critic vexed, how must thy listening spirit now rejoice to be interpreted by such a voice? How sweet. That was sonnet on Mrs. Kemble's readings from Shakespeare. And next up we have The Singers. God sent his singers upon earth with songs of sadness and of mirth, that they might touch the hearts of men and bring them back to heaven again. The first, a youth with soul of fire, held in his hand a golden lyre. Through groves he wandered and by streams, playing the music of our dreams. The second, with a bearded face, stood singing in the marketplace, and stirred with accents deep and loud the hearts of all the listening crowd. A gray old man, the third and last, sang in cathedrals dim and vast, while the majestic organ rolled contrition from its mouths of gold. And those who heard the singers three disputed which the best might be, for still their music seemed to start discordant echoes in each heart. But the great master said, I see no best in kind but in degree. I gave a various gift to each, to charm, to strengthen, and to teach. These are the three great chords of might, and he whose ear is turned aright will hear no discord in the three, but the most perfect harmony. That was The Singers by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Read by me, Papa Bear, and my stomach at the end there. I'm very sorry if you heard that. My stomach is telling me it might be time for breakfast. But my stomach is not the boss of me. I'm going to keep going. For a little while. The next poem is called Suspiria. Take them, O death, and bear away whatever thou canst call thine own. Thine image, stamped upon this clay, doth give thee that, but that alone. Take them, O grave, and let them lie folded upon thy narrow shelves, as garments by the soul laid by, and precious only to ourselves. Take them, O great eternity, our little life is but a gust that bends the branches of thy tree and trails its blossoms in the dust. Next up is Hymn for My Brother's Ordination. Christ to the young man said, "Yet one thing more. If thou wouldst perfect be, sell all thou hast, and give it to the poor, and come and follow me." Within this temple Christ again unseen those sacred words hath said, and his invisible hands today have been laid on a young man's head. And evermore beside him on his way the unseen Christ shall move, that he may lean upon his arm and say, "Dost thou, dear Lord, approve?" Beside him at the marriage feast shall be, to make the scene more fair. Beside him in the dark Gethsemane of pain and midnight prayer. O holy trust, O endless sense of rest, like the beloved John, to lay his head upon the Saviour's breast, and thus to journey on. That was Hymn for My Brother's Ordination. My apologies to any listeners who might be put off by the Christian themes in some of these poems. Longfellow was who Longfellow was, and he wrote what he wanted to write. And I think they are worth reading, whatever you believe. And I will say that in his poems he gives quite a lot of reverence to some non-Christian traditions. In particular, it looks like this next poem is a poem about Native Americans, which could be dangerous, honestly, for me to read without having previewed it. Because the fact is that in Longfellow's days, attitudes about Native Americans were not what we would consider acceptable by modern standards. But he's written several, or I've read several of his poems about the Native Americans, and I feel like he treats that culture quite respectfully. This is, however, quite a long poem, and it is in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it just keeps going, 10, I'm counting the parts in this poem, and each part is quite long, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, it just keeps going. Yeah, I'm not going to read this. Not in this stream, anyway. It's just too long. I definitely don't have time or a voice within me to finish it today. I'm up to 21 parts, 22. Okay, there finally. Are we done? No, it keeps going. Right. So I might come back to that in a later stream. I'll read through it first to be sure it's something worth streaming. And I'm going to do the same with this work that follows it, which is another long story in many parts called The Courtship of Miles Standish, excuse me. That also looks more like a novel than a poem. I'm not here to read his novels, I'm here to read his poems, so we'll skip over that. Okay, the poems resume here with a series of poems titled Birds of Passage. I will hydrate and clear my throat, and then we'll get started on these. Okay, so Flight the First, Birds of Passage by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Black shadows fall from the lindens tall that lift aloft their massive wall against the southern sky. And from the realms of the shadowy elms, a tide like darkness overwhelms the fields that round us lie. But the night is fair, and everywhere a warm, soft vapor fills the air, and distant sounds seem near, and above in the light of the star-lit night, swift birds of passage wing their flight through the dewy atmosphere. I hear the beat of their pinions fleet, as from the land of snow and sleet they seek a southern lee. I hear the cry of their voices high, falling dreamily through the sky, but their forms I cannot see. Oh, say not so, those sounds that flow in murmurs of delight and woe come not from wings of birds. They are the throngs of the poet's songs, murmurs of pleasures and pains and wrongs, the sound of winged words. This is the cry of souls that high on toiling, beating pinions fly, seeking a warmer clime. From their distant flight through the realms of night, it falls into our world of light with the murmuring sound of rhyme. It does seem like my voice is starting to get a bit strained. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep going, but definitely a few more poems, at least. The next poem is called Prometheus, or the Poet's Forethought. Of Prometheus, how undaunted on Olympus' shining bastions his audacious foot he planted. Myths are told and songs are chanted, full of promptings and suggestions. Beautiful is the tradition of that flight through heavenly portals, the old classic superstition of the theft and the transmission of the fire of the immortals. First the deed of noble daring, born of heavenward aspiration, then the fire with mortal sharing, then the vulture, the despairing cry of pain on crags Caucasian. All is but a symbol painted of the poet, prophet, seer. Only those are crowned and sainted who with grief have been acquainted, making nations nobler, freer. In their feverish exaltations, in their triumph, in their yearning, in their passionate pulsations, in their words across the nations, the Promethean fire is burning. Shall it then be unavailing, all this toil for human culture? Through the cloud rack dark and trailing, must they see above them sailing o'er life's barren crags the vulture? Such a fate as this was Dante's, by defeat and exile maddened. Thus were Milton and Cervantes, nature's priests and Corybantes, by affliction touched and saddened. But the glories so transcendent that around their memories cluster, and on all their steps attendant make their darkened lives resplendent with such gleams of inward luster. All the melodies mysterious through the dreary darkness chanted, thoughts in attitudes imperious, voices soft and deep and serious, words that whispered, songs that haunted. All the soul in rapt suspension, all the quivering, palpitating chords of life in utmost tension, with the fervor of invention, with the rapture of creating. Ah, Prometheus, heaven scaling in such hours of exaltation, even the faintest heart, unquailing, might behold the vulture sailing round the cloudy crags Caucasian. Though to all there is not given strength for such sublime endeavor, thus to scale the walls of heaven, and to leaven with fiery leaven all the hearts of men forever. Yet all bards, whose hearts unblighted honor and believe the presage, hold aloft their torches lighted, gleaming through the realms benighted, as onward bear the message. You have to admire about Longfellow the sheer volume. Such long poems he wrote, and through most of them kept the rhymes quite strong. It's very hard. I've tried to do it myself. Rhyming takes a certain kind of brain. Alrighty, I do feel my voice fading here. But I'm gonna give at least one more a try. But first, once again, a quick break to hydrate and clear my throat. Okay, the next poem, quite possibly the last poem I'm going to read today. We'll see how I feel after it. It's called Epimetheus, or the Poet's Afterthought. Epimetheus. Have I dreamed, or was it real, what I saw as in a vision, when to marches hymeneal in the land of the ideal moved my thought o'er fields Elysian? What are these the guests whose glances seemed like sunshine gleaming round me? These the wild, bewildering fancies that with dithyrambic dances, as with magic circles bound me. Ah, how cold are their caresses, pallid cheeks and haggard bosoms, spectral gleam their snow-white dresses, and from loose, disheveled tresses fall the hyacinthine blossoms. Oh, my songs, whose winsome measures filled my heart with secret rapture, children of my golden leisures, must even your delights and pleasures fade and perish with the capture? Fair they seemed, those songs sonorous, when they came to me unbidden, voices single and in chorus, like the wild bird singing o'er us in the dark of branches hidden. Disenchantment, disillusion, must each noble aspiration come at last to this conclusion, jarring, discord, wild confusion, lassitude, renunciation. Not with steeper fall nor faster from the sun's serene dominions, not through brighter realms nor vaster, in swift ruin and disaster, Icarus fell with shattered pinions. Sweet Pandora, dear Pandora, why did mighty Jove create thee? Coy as Thetis, fair as Flora, beautiful as young Aurora, if to win thee is to hate thee. No, not hate thee, for this feeling of unrest and long resistance is but passionate appealing, a prophetic whisper stealing o'er the chords of our existence. Him whom thou dost once enamor, thou, beloved, never leavest. In life's discord, strife, and clamor, still he feels the spell of glamour. Him of hope thou ne'er bereavest. Weary hearts by thee are lifted, struggling souls by thee are strengthened. Clouds of fear asunder rifted, truth from falsehood cleansed and sifted. Lives like days in summer lengthened. Therefore art thou ever clearer, O my Sibyl, my deceiver, for thou makest each mystery clearer, and the unattained seems nearer when thou fillest my heart with fever. Muse of all the gifts and graces, through the fields around us wither, there are ampler realms and spaces where no foot has left its traces. Let us turn and wander thither. poem was called Epimetheus, or the Poet's Afterthought. And clearly it was quite difficult to read. A lot of vocab words in there and Greek names. And this poor bear has a very small, very smooth brain. It's a tiny little bear brain. Reading poems like that, it's a bit beyond me. There was one stanza in there. It's quite admirable, the rhymes he came up with there. But boy, I'm going to read it again. Disenchantment, disillusion, must each noble aspiration come at last to this conclusion, jarring discord, wild confusion, lassitude, renunciation. That's a heck of a stanza. Those rhymes. Well done, Longfellow. But that poem was not easy to read. So I feel like after a bit over 2 hours here, my voice and my stomach and my head are telling me to stop. So I think that'll be the last poem. And we will start the next stream with a poem called The Ladder of St. Augustine. The next stream, I think, will not be until Thursday evening. Unless I get lucky and find some other time before then. So, I hope you enjoyed your time here. I hope you found a feeling of relaxation and presence, or perhaps sleep. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again. Until next time.